Welcome back to the shop. Time for a little update. First of all, thanks to all my new subscribers. I think I've gained, I went from 18 to like 32 in the last month, so thanks guys. It is transfer case time. So I am upgrading to heavy duty chain, which is 1.25 inches versus 1 inch on the old, or the normal 231 chain. So wider gears, wider gear here. This is a heavy duty shaft out of a slip yoke kit that I got for this 231 several years ago. I don't remember what brand it is, but and then also I'm upgrading to a 6-pinion planetary and 27 spline input to go into the 4060E that is currently in the Jeep. One thing I did want to show you, there's a difference. There's a year split, so I don't know if you can see the difference between these gears. This is the late model gear cut, and this is the early model gear cut. You can see that the late model gear cut has a thinner profile at the top, and the older one has a thicker profile at the tip of the tooth. So what that means is if you're upgrading, if you're using a 6-pinion planetary like I am out of an early model 231, then you have to get an early model front case half, because where'd it go? It's over. Oh, here it is over here. So the annulus gear that goes in the case is those two gear meshes don't. Those two gear cuts won't mesh together. It'll destroy your case and your planetaries. So I gotta go find an early model front half of a 231 Jeep case so that I can use the rest of my stuff in it. This is actually a older S10 case that I got all of my heavy duty parts out of. So anyway, I gotta find a older case. I'm gonna go to my local pick and pull whatever this weekend and see if I can find one. Ordered a kit through my buddy that I got my transmission parts from. He got me the bearing and seal and rebuild kit for the 231. I figure while it's apart, I might as well put all brand new everything in it. So this is the shift comb from, it's a 2-low kit that I got from DC 4-wheel drive. I tried finding them recently, and I don't think their website's up. They must have gone out of business or something, but I love my 2-low. A lot of guys are like, oh, what do you use it for? But I use it actually all the time when I'm off-road. So let's take a look at this over here. So here's the issue. So this GM harness needs a signal from a 40-tooth reluctor ring for the vehicle speed sensor. And my old slip yoke tail shaft is the Jeep style, obviously, which takes a gear-driven VSS speed sensor, and so that obviously wouldn't work. So I found off of this S10 case, this is the low-profile tail shaft housing off of the early S10 case. I was trying to figure out how to get a centered threaded hole for the VSS, so I found that this S10 case had something that worked. I actually have to bore this out and rethread it because it's not the right size for the late model GM speed sensor. But so I threw this on the case, and the bearing that I was using, the location of the bearing on that shaft was above this surface right here. So I did some measuring and calculating, and then I made this ring, which presses down inside the case flush, sticks up. I actually need to go back over and remachine this a little bit. It's a little too thick. I need to machine it down to 245. So that sits there, and then where's my bearing? Here's a bearing right here, and then this bearing sits on top of that. Shaft goes through. Then I've got a seal surface. I machined this. You'll see that video coming up in a second here. I'm going to show you some machining footage. But I machined this on the lathe in the mill over at my dad's house. He's got a mill and a lathe. So the bearing goes inside that, and the spacer goes below it, and then this sits on top, and seal goes in, bolts down, and that seals up the back of my transfer case. So, and as you can see here, yeah, I have two. I screwed that one up. The bolt pattern on this GM was really, really nice and did not make this bolt pattern symmetrical. So I thought that I had it the right way on that one, and it turns out I had one hole clocked the wrong way. So anyway, I had to make two. So here's the new one. You can see here I got a little close there, but the seal and a little bit of goop on the inside should be okay. A little bit of RTV or something. So yeah, that's going to be the new tail shaft housing. Hope it works. I think it should. On my 231, after I get all of my heavy duty parts put in, so should be a pretty decent case for strength when I'm all done with it. So that's the transfer case story. And I just hit a milestone on that thing yesterday. I was having a problem with the I wasn't getting a signal from the fuel pump trigger wire from the PCM, and my throttle body wasn't working. After I got all the wires hooked up, the throttle body was just sitting there clicking, and it was just kind of making some clicking noises, and nothing was working. And so I did a ton of reading on LS1 Tech and just on the interwebs, and decided that it had to be a ground issue, and it turned out it was. I had a ground wire on my TAC module that I had wrapped up with all the cruise control wires, and I didn't label it, I guess. And so I found that black wire, traced it back to the plug, and then looked up the pin out for that connector on the TAC module, and it ended up being a ground. So as soon as I hooked that up, throttle body worked, fuel pump prime works, my gauges work, my turn signals work. Let me show you a little shot of my gauges here. Let's turn this on. So there's what my gauges look like, and I've got turn signals, and I've got a bright indicator, so that's good. So all that's working. So making some progress. I'm hoping that I can come up with a temporary fuel source, and I got to put oil in it, got to put transmission fluid in it, I got to bolt the torque converter to the flywheel still. I got to bolt the intake down, and maybe some vacuum stuff, I don't know. Hopefully I can test fire this thing in a couple of weeks, see how everything goes. So anyway, thanks for subscribing. Comment if you feel like you need to tell me something, or if you think I'm doing something wrong or right or whatever. And see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.